We head back to America, and this time for another new track. Welcome back to Season 5 of 2026 here at oNiD Racing. And once again, we're here for round 3 of the Multiclass series in collaboration with the Sim Racing Collective. Laguna Seca, a track we know from Asao Corsa Competizione, but slightly changed, slightly remodeled now as it's been updated, some slightly new runoffs, maybe making the track a little more forgiving. One thing's for sure, the cars won't be as nearly as forgiving as they were on ACC. Welcome all, and joining me as always, it is the wonderful Paul Hydra. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, excited to see how folks are settling in with this new track. I was explaining beforehand that it doesn't matter what sim I race this track on. I always struggle with, particularly the corkscrew as we have on screen. But yeah, curious to see how the hypercars handle it. It's not something I've seen too often. I feel like GT3s I'm a bit more accustomed to seeing. So curious to see how the cars maneuver on their own. But of course, with this wonderful series, we do have the added complication of the fact that we have two classes at the same time. Traffic is going to be something we will see, no doubt. And yeah, what a if you're having trouble with the runoffs on a good day, then trying to have traffic squeezing all around you is going to make that even more problematic.
Yeah, we're getting into qualifying session. I forgot to bring up our standings and calendar to show you where we're at in the season so far. How about we just do that real uh, real quick? Hide that tar over there. This is where we are in the calendar. I said third round. We've been to Daytona. We've been to Silverstone. But now we come to the most technical track that we have on the calendar. WeatherTag Raceway, Laguna Seca. Tight technical track. Some very notoriously difficult anti-cuts requiring a lot of precision. Of course, as Paul mentioned, the infamous corkscrew. So it should be a big challenge for our drivers. Here are standings heading into this round. It is Christian Kiesig that leads the way in GT3 class. Big lead, 32 points over Ben Brown. Rob Appleton a few points further back. Chris Downing and Adisa Carpenter round out our top 5. They're a tie for 6th place between Basker and Matt Townsend as well. So quite close up down the GT3 field. In Hypercar class, it's Ben Crook who's a couple of points ahead compared to Kasich, having taken a fastest lap. Dave Wood singing second, 33 points back. Max Tarasenko in third. Nicholas Davies, having missed the first round, is sitting pretty well considering that in P4. Dov Myers, who we're watching in the background, is in P5. As we've had the first times come through, it's currently Dave Wood that is topping the timesheets as drivers continue on their way. However, Myers, 2 purple sectors so far coming up to the line. In fact, Ben Crook has taken the purple opening sector. It's back to the top of the timesheets for them. And let's make our way on board with Ben Crook onto the dashboard into the final couple of corners. I believe it is Purple's first 2 sectors. Looks like he invalidated his first flying lap into this tight left-hand final corner. Run to the line then. It's 113.6 currently at top of the timesheets. That becomes a 13.435 for Ben Crook on for a good lap. Let's go down to our GT3 field. Alfie Bevan just finished a lap. I think it was invalidated. It was currently sitting down in P8. Want to say thank you to Matt Holman for subscribing for the 50th month in a row, a little over 4 years. Thank you very much, Matt Holman, one of our admins here at oNiD. Long time admin, as you can tell from the length of that subscription. It is great to have your support.
I feel like this track, I think we'll see a bit of it in quali here with some invalid laps, but yeah, the track limits, it's such a niggly one because like any time you gain is Yeah, it's so easy to invalidate exceeding any of the track limits here. I feel like maybe the corkscrew is going to be a particular pain point for a lot of the drivers. You see a little bit of airtime for the Lamborghini, one over taking the dive, as it were, and just running slightly wide there. But yeah, folks will have to be careful, I suppose, maybe using this time to kind of really stretch the limits. Whereas maybe in the race, I think they might be a little bit more inclined to play a little bit safer course of the hour and 15 minutes. Bevan then comes up into sixth place, a second and a half off the pole time, currently set by Matt Townsend.
Yeah, Matt Townsend back to the top with 22.397 in GT3s. See Christian Schlink through, up to P12 now. Let's go to our hypercar class. Tyler Hammer coming through, not improving. Wasn't the driver I was going to go for. It was Chris Johnston, who was improving. And let's see, who's our biggest improvers at the moment? Let's go to Edison Carpenter, currently sitting in P5. As you can see on the timing tower, 2.5 tenths up. A little further down, we also have Hovsep Nazarian, who's just over 4 tenths up. Drivers making their way through the final sector. Edison not improving in that middle sector. Does need to find a bit of time, nearly 4 tenths if they want to get on to second row of the grid. It is an improvement. They cut the gap down and they'll be returning to the pits after that run. Nazarian up to line now, improves to P6, up a couple of places, sitting half a second behind Adusa in P5. We will come back to Christian Schlink, who's just over half a second up, as it's still sitting in P12. Up to the line now for them, and up to P11. If they keep gaining one spot with every lap, soon enough they'll find themselves in the front half of the grid. Back to the hypercars. Egner coming up to line, improves from P8 to P6, up a couple of places, only by just over 100th of a second ahead of Tarasenko at the moment.
Johnny Ashley making a few moves to get up to P9, although Ben Brown getting a time on the board, jumps all the way from, I think, 12th to all the way up to third place in the GT3 class. Still half second off, but it does squeeze in ahead of Rob Appleton and Chris Downing, all sharing that half second gap as well. Also, thank you to Captain Danger for the 7 months. Subscribe to Prime. Thanks for clicking that button, giving us some of that Bezos cash. Yeah, Tyler Hammer then bringing his hypercar around down out of the corkscrew. Corners here, well, actually probably some of the nicer corners to deal with, but get as much speed as possible. The hairpin at the end, back on the throttle, able to improve over the line. Very close, but doesn't manage to climb up to P8. Remains in P9 for the time being.
Up to the line for Johnny Ashley. Gets himself up to P7. And we'll head back to the pits. We'll come to Zach Silver, one of the next drivers to come across line as Ben Crook has ever so slightly improved their fastest time of the session. I've just noticed at the top of the hypercar standings, 0.003 of a second separating Dave Wood and Dov Myers in second and third. That is a very tight battle. Let me just quickly see if any of them are improving. Dave Wood was improving, but he's apparently invalidated his middle sector. We'll come to Chris Hansen, who has slowed down. They were a 10th up in the first sector. Let's actually go on board with our current pole sitter as they're improving even more. They found another 10th in the opening sector of lap, climbing the way up Rahal Straight to the infamous corkscrew on the brakes over the crest, gets the car turned in very nicely for the first apex, lines second apex up very nicely considering how blind it is as you come over the crest. Through rainy curve now, a little bit on the anti-cut on the inside, sets the car up for the penultimate corner, gets into the apex, don't run it wide onto the gravel on the exit, lost half a tenth in the middle sector as he slows it down for the final corner. TSRC gets ahead of Aigner for P6 lower down in the hypercar field. But will the pole time be pushed a little further up? No, it will not be. A couple of hundredths slower than his best time so far, but he will go on for another lap.
All the while just building that consistency as well, getting more and more familiar with the track, getting those laps in. Bob Appleton then in the Lexus. Can he improve from 4th place? It's not a massive gap up into the podium spots. Does remain in 4th place. Christian Kiesig then. Plenty of green power there. Oh my goodness, comes within 300ths of a second to get just right in behind Matt Townsend there for P1. Jensen then through the last corner as well. Right line into the hairpin. Out he goes. Able to improve, to climb it all. Not on this occasion, remains 4th.
Come to Johansson now in the Isotta. Brave choice within the hypercar class. Isn't doing too badly. Sits P5 currently in this session. Is at 2 tenths, nearly 2.5 tenths up. Needs to find a little bit more time though, if they want to break into the second row of the grid. As they come up to the line. And they will do it, 200ths of a second up to P4. Next will come to Frank Vevik. Not a lot of drivers improving at the moment. A lot of red on the timing screen. Frank Vevik though, not one of those people. Currently sitting in 15th position. Weirdly, the timing tower a little out of sync. Does come through, but invalidating that previous lap. We'll come on board then with... sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's fairly toasty track conditions, 37.5 degrees, air temperature of 22, so I suppose true to real life, it is a fairly warm day at Laguna Seca. Matt Townsend going fastest again in GT3, getting themselves just a little bit of wiggle room ahead of Christian Kiesig, but that's not a lot. Could just be enough.
So through went Alfie Bevan, currently saying P7 up to line 4. Johansson was improving, lost a bit of time, though still improved by 1,000th of a second in the end. We've liked a little bit more from the final sector. Some more drivers now finding a bit of time, including Chris Downing, who we come to here. Has nearly 3 tenths across the first 2 sectors. A little bit of a bounce from the Ferrari through the final corner. Up to the line then, currently saying P6, makes it P4. Good improvement there from the Ferrari to get onto the second row of the grid, to make it 2 Porsches and 2 Ferraris on the first 2 rows of the GT3 grid currently, as we still have a minute of this qualifying session. Drivers will be getting to their final laps. Egner comes across the line, but they invalidated that previous lap right towards the end. Let us... Christian Kiesig just came through the first sector, not improving. This I'm going board with the Dusa Carpenter. A little bit slower than their personal best through the opening sector. Found a quarter of a second through the middle sector, as Dov Myers has a good final sector to get P2 in hypercar class. Dusa Carpenter will find P5 within the GT3s. A lot of people making small improvements. Tarasenko finding a great bunch of time through the middle sector. The drivers struggling to find time in that opening sector, but the second and final sector offering opportunity across the line. It looks like it was an invalid lap, unfortunately, for Tarasenko. We'll come back to Egner, who's coming through the final sector, found a bit of time in the first sector this time and lost a little bit in the middle sector. Currently sitting P7 in the Cadillac. As you can see, the checkered flag is now out. These are the final laps. And it's still P7, no improvement in the end for Egner. Dove Myers, purple, first sector, personal best, middle sector. It's gonna be a tight one for pole position here. It looks like Ben Crook has finished their session off already, so it's all on the Alpine driver to see if they can take pole position, run to the line here. And they do so by 21 thousandths of a second. The purple final sector. Dove Myers puts the Alpine on pole position.
Those marginal improvements, just everything you needed. Tarasenko, then one of our last hypercar drivers. Most of the GT3 field has finished up for the quali session. Tarasenko goes through the line, remains in P6.
So that is our order at the end of qualifying. Dove Myers taking pole position, holding off two Porsches in the hypercar field. It's Matt Townsend taking pole in the GT3 field, holding off two Ferraris. Very tight battles between the two. If you add the two gaps, first and second in each class, it is only 59 thousandths of a second. That is how close the fights for pole were. That by itself is a close margin, but two fights for pole position adding to that is just incredible. But as the drivers have loaded or are about to make their way to the grid, let us go through the full starting order for our race here at Laguna Seca. As said, Dove Myers takes pole position, 21 thousandths ahead of Ben Crook in the Porsche. Dave Wood, also in the Porsche, starts P3 ahead of Daniel Johansson in P4. Aaron Chris Jansen starts P5 ahead of Max Tarasenko in P6. Dominic Egner starts P7. Zach Silver getting the Aston Martin up to P8. Peter Yelnick starts P9 ahead of Tyler Hammer, who rounds out our top 10. Charlie Morgan in the BMW just missing out. Elliot Lewis starts P12 with Benji Beans rounding out our 13 car hypercar field. Take us away with GT3s, Paul.
Yeah, Matt Townsend on pole with the Ferrari ahead of Christian Kiesig. Ben Brown with that P3 in the Porsche ahead of Chris Downing in P4. Adusa Carpenter able to go up to P5 with Rob Appleton in P6 in the Lexus. Alfie Bevan in P7 with Johnny Ashley in P8. Hovsep Nazarian in his Porsche goes into P9 with Jeff Close in P10. Connor Dickman takes 11th place along with Matthias Fuskin. And Christian Schlink is in 13th with Paul Kingsbury in 14th in the McLaren. And in last place in 15th is Frank Vivek in his BMW. So two very competitive fields. I feel like up and down there's going to be quite a lot of battles as we get underway. The cars rolling off on their short formation lap down the corkscrew. Perhaps the tidiest. They're going to take it all evening. Nice and gentle with that 60 kilometer an hour speed limit as they roll their way down to get to the start-finish line.
It's a very tight final corner, which might just, depending on where the drivers, of course, at the moment, it's Dove Myers who sets the limit at 1 point towards the final corner. All the drivers will be limited to 60 kilometers per hour. They can't close up any gaps. Make sure they're further alongside the driver beside them. If they find themselves a car length back, they just have to deal with that off the start. And you can see that the tight inside line really opens up a bit of a gap. But the drivers just have enough time here to close it back up. About to go to the green flag here. Dove Myers on pole position. Ben Crook alongside in the Spike Porsche 963. The green flag is out and the drivers are away over the crest of T1. Nearly 3 wide in the background as we head into the Andretti hairpin bend, covering the inside. Well, just by hold on, Chris Jansen trying to take, has had good starts so far from P5, trying to take podium position here from Dave Wood and gets the move done, takes the Genesis onto the podium.
Christian Kiesig taking the lead in GT3, getting ahead of Matt Townsend. Pretty closely packed there is Ben Brown on the outside. Little bit of contact, manages to stick around. Green flag still waving for the sector now as they go up the hill towards the corkscrew. Very difficult. Like there's still some hypercar traffic just about clearing the corkscrew at the moment. The GT3 leaders arrive. Everyone's looking fairly neat. Way safely.
Tyler Hammer and Max Tarasenko having a fight here. It's been a poor start for Tarasenko, down 3 places off where they qualified. Tyler Hammer, the last one to take advantage of that as they all complete the first flying lap. Let's go back down to the GT3s. Ben Brown putting pressure, Chris Downing putting pressure on Ben Brown. Will look to the outside. We'll have to go the long way round of the Andretti Hairpin. He's just going to get the nose there, but Ben shoves him onto the gravel, not leaving any space for Chris Downing, who then hammers the anti-cut at turn 3. They'll bump from Adusa Kumter behind. This track ever so tight, that small mistake, nowhere to go. Just give a little helping hand. That allows Rob Appleton to close up here. But Chris Downing already putting the pressure back on, as meanwhile a little further up, Dave Wood with a spin into the corkscrew.
I wonder if that was perhaps maybe contact with another car, or else maybe locking up the brakes and misjudging the braking zone, but drops all the way back from third place all the way down to 12th. So that's going to be a bit of a hill to climb again. Although after watching last week's performance at Silverstone, perhaps one that he's going to do just fine at. So he might we'll have to keep an eye and see how far he's able to make it back up along the grid.
Let us quickly get on board with Dave Wood as he comes up to thing here, and just as he goes over the crest, it gets some rear locking, maybe putting a couple of the right hand side tires on the car, but settling as well, taking away big grip and spinning off, drops down to P12. Unfortunate mistake there for Dave Wood. A lot of work to make up as he qualified quite high up in P3.
Myers taking the lead there in hypercars with Christian Kiesig headed in the GT3s. I'm just going to give a call out to Sam for doing some great work on the broadcasting tool, the screen pop-ups and the beautiful visuals we have courtesy of Sam. So yeah, great work being put in to update that tool. Very grateful for it, to have it. I know when I commentate on other sims, I am sorely wanting anything that'll give me as much information as this has.
We've got another spin.
Oh.
This time the Cadillac of Egner has to wait for the whole field, including Dave Wood, the first of our spinners to go through. And now Petr Yelnik also in the gravel a little further up. So really things kicking off here in the hypercar class. Side by side, Max Tarasenko trying to make one of the places up that he lost a little earlier on. Zach Silver has dropped down there a little bit. It's been Tyler Hammer who has been on a charge so far this race, up 5 places now, of course benefiting from the mistakes from those that were previously in front of him. But still, it's been a great start into the top 5. Bit of pressure now on Tyler Hammer to see if he can convert this into a good result. Still a long way to go in this race. It is still 70 minutes to go. Gotta get that strategy right, as there are quick people behind Tyler. He'll be wanting to take that top 5 position from him.
Yeah, I suppose you have to be in those positions, like, you know, you have to be in it to win it, as they say, as we have Tarasenko just kind of closing in a little bit on Zach Silver here. If you go on the rear view camera just to get a better view, but yeah, and this track, it's you know, we'd seen how competitive and quick the drivers were in the quality, but in the race conditions, they're going to have to watch out for exceeding track limits. Those anti-cut corners are going to be, they can cause a lot of havoc with unsettling cars and knocking them off. So anything they're doing is going to be any mistakes that they're going to be making going to be capitalized on by cars behind. See, just very different lines going into the corkscrew. Obviously, drivers just finding their comfort zones, just how to maneuver through. But interesting to see how that played out. It's getting very close in the last few corners as well. Eyeing up a move, perhaps going into the Andretti corner.
On the run then, over the crest of turn 1 towards the hairpin, will look for a move to the inside. Zach is going to give him the space, try and hang it round the outside. A little bit of door banging in the middle there, but Zach going to try and send it back to the inside. Turn 3, just not quite far enough alongside. And that is going to be position gained then for Max Tarasenko. Charlie Morgan now immediately closing up on Zach Silver. And we'll be trying to repeat what the Cadillac driver was able to do. But Tarasenko now trying to chase down Tyler Hammer as Zach still goes from defending against Cadillac to defending against a BMW.
Oh, and we have Charlie Morgan, I'd say, just just locking up on the brakes. You can see the kind of snapping as it got under the braking zone. The tires was locking up. Luckily, and I think this was true for Dave Wood as well when we were on board with their incident earlier, doing well to keep it out of the barriers. There is a barrier just beyond the entry into the corkscrew, which can claim many a wing and some front end damage. But I think both drivers doing well just to get back on track with their tail between their legs and perhaps a little damaged confidence going into that corner.
Yeah, so we've had a few mistakes, actually. Let's save them for a little moment here. It's coming into the corkscrew. Chris Downing has made a move on Ben Brown. And we didn't quite get to see this.
Nazarian has had an issue. He's dropped back a few places. He looks to be stopped on track. Ooh. I'm going to say there's perhaps a large issue there. The steward in the background there, not quite sure whether or not to wave that yellow flag he's holding. There are 4 wheels still on that Porsche, so it goes on again.
Yeah, we'll maybe save the replays and come back to them a little bit later, because we're not going to get a break here. Dave Wood sending it to the inside of Zach Silver as BMW Frank Vevic going off wide at the final corner. But Dave making that move back, one of the places he lost from that spin going into the corkscrew. And, well, a bit of consolidation. He's far from the only person to make a mistake like that this race. We're not even 10 minutes into this race, and we're already seeing so many mistakes.
Oh, Tarasenko. Oh no. We might have to break out that replay sooner than expected, although there's so much action happening up and down. Oh no, that's heartbreak. It looks like I don't see an engine. It looks like that car is switched off.
Well, let's see what happened coming into T3 here. Swings the car in, and that looks like an unfortunate disconnection issue there for Tarasenko. Very, very unfortunate for him. Yeah, nothing they can do about that, unfortunately. But we'll promote a number of drivers up positions. Meanwhile, Charlie Morgan has gone off adventuring and has added himself to the list of people that we need to catch up on. There are so many moments on this replay list. I'm trying to remember which ones we said we were going to look at. Let's start with this one. Egner coming down to T1. And that's fighting Johansson. Looks to the inside, but trying not to get into the rear end of there. Soto just locks the rear brakes, putting on a little too much brake pressure. And that would be their spin. Let's go to Petr Jelinek. That was... You could not do that if you tried. Perfectly timed. Petr Jelinek just losing the rear at turn 3, going for a full 360, Bordelletto style, you could say, from the Dutch Grand Prix, and gets away with that one. We had one for Charlie Morgan, did we? Yes, coming up to the bus stop here. This behind Zach Silver. Over the crest, and yeah, just gets a little wobble as the rear brake started to lock over the crest, and yeah, that is not ideal for them. So we come back to live. Matt Townsend has taken fastest lap of the race, and let's jump on board with Ben Brown, who's trying to chase down Chris Downing, who of course made the move. Got the dive to the inside of Ben Brown. Done not too long ago. As
we have the hypercar traffic saying hello.
Yeah,
and then that's compromised Chris's line out of that corner. Just closing the gap, but isn't able to capitalize on it, as we do have the track map up on the screen, where we can see a lot of red interspersed with lots of dots of green. Those are the GT3 cars in the green colours, with the red being the hypercar traffic. So they're ever present. I feel like, yeah, we're just about 10 minutes in, and already the overlaps begin. Hypercars, you can see the gap that it's kind of imposing on the two GT3s here.
Just remembered we missed the overtake of Downing on Ben Brown, so I am trying to find it in the list of replays, although it is a long list.
While you have a look around for that, we're just on board with Ben Brown. That hypercar traffic just weaving their way. You can see that they have to compensate for the braking that the GT3s are doing into some of the corners. Just has to slot in and wait for a patient gap to appear.
So this is what's showing me. That's not quite the right time.
Unless the move was into the hairpin, maybe?
Might have been. To be honest, I'm not even sure exactly what replay I clicked on. There's that many in this list. So I don't think we're unfortunately going to get to watch that one back. But yeah, very even pace between these two drivers. Half-second gap has opened up now, as Elliot Lewis has gone for another spin. Let's take a look back at this one. Coming into the penultimate corner, gets on the gravel on the entry, and decides, rather than turning the car in and going for an inevitable spin, just strengthening the car up and taking it off track. Oh, Zach Silver and Petr Jelinek coming together. One of the Lamborghinis, Alfie Bevan, getting involved as well, as Zach is trying to get out of the way here, but he's missing a rear tire and is going to have to go back to pit lane. Petr Jelinek, I think, is also missing a tire. No, he's not. It's just right pointing onto the racing line. The rear wheel's in the gravel. He's trying to find traction where grip is at a premium. But disaster for multiple of our drivers. Let's go through this piece by piece. Zach Silver going for a move on Ben Brown, looks to the inside of Chris Downing. I think there might have been a little bit of contact, spins, and then Peter Yelnick comes in sideways, and then Alfie Bevan, blindsided to all of this, also comes in. Let's go back to the start of this and let's get on board with Zach Silver. Just to see what happens. He looks, and yeah, they'll tag on the back of Chris Downing, and then there's Peter Jelinek and Alfie Bevan. We can see they're actually started to lose the car. Let's go on board with Peter Jelinek to see what he saw of this. Going through the right-hander. Oh, there's the cars, and just got on the brakes, but the car already completely loaded up, unable to do anything in avoiding action. And here's Alfie Bevan's view, comes through, starts losing the rear end at that point. Couldn't really do anything, was already in a big slide, and yeah, but seems to have got away better than our other drivers, so has come into pit lane for repairs. Both Peter Jelinek, Zach Silver have retired from the race as chaos has unfolded in... Wow, and really, I think that might still have been either the first time the hypercars have gone through the GT3s, or I think we're... yeah, I think that's still the first time the hypercars were passing GT3s.
And very sad for Peter Jelinek, because they did have all 4 tires left. So just have this forward Dominic Egner there, just trying to get past Tyler Hammer, who's really holding on to that 5th position as they go into the corkscrew. But yeah, Peter Jelinek just wasn't able to get like grip coming out of, like, I know the gravel was a bit of a sand trap, but I was expecting them to be able to pull off, but maybe the engine was gone and they just didn't have the drive in the car. Bit of a strange one. Very sorry to see them finishing their race early as well.
Yeah, showed up as a position change. I think that's just a little lag moment from LMU. Ben Brown still following. We have had, for the last few laps, the average VE usage for our drivers. Most around 2.2. A couple of drivers creeping up to 2.4%. Also have a couple of drivers down at 2.0%. What does that mean for the overall virtual energy? Let's have a little look at that now. We can see Johansson doing well, as I've got to find the hypercar field. Let's come back to that fight as Egner trying to find a way past fellow Cadillac driver Tyler Hammer, who's had a great start to this race, up 5 positions, having qualified in P10, and is now most likely going to have a very defensive rest of this race. Tries to go around the outside of a BMW, runs wide into the grass, or not the grass, the gravel, and loses place. A bit of indecision there from Egner as they were coming up onto the back of a Porsche to try and pass, misses their braking point, and through goes Tyler Hammer again, retakes P5. These drivers, the hypercar drivers, struggling with the GT3 traffic.
Yeah, I think it's what happens when you when you're trying to battle with the car around you, and then suddenly there's just these pawns like in the way. Ben Brown getting very close to Chris Downing as they go into the corkscrew, almost pushing him through, willing him to get down. Frank Vevic is getting past Christian Schlink as Schlink goes into the pits after only 20 minutes. So making an early stop. There is the BMW. Yeah, Ben Brown really trying to turn the screw here and force a mistake out of Chris Downing. They both battle for this last podium spot in GT3. But the battles continue. Dave Wood now entering the foray between Egner and Hammer. Although Hammer has been able to pull out a 2-second gap. You just see them just ahead on the screen here. So Dave Wood joins the party. Egner catches a little bit of the gravel, kicks up a bit of dust, does well to regain control of the car. Ben Crook goes up into P2, passing Aaron Christiansen. There's so much happening, and it's only been 20 minutes.
Usually in a race, you can tell when something is about to happen, especially with the data that we have on live timing. It's like, you see someone closing in. These battles are just happening spontaneously, probably because it's so difficult for these hypercars to get around the GT3s, and it's affecting both classes. As Dave goes for a second spin, going for a 360.
Yeah.
Luckily, not as fatal as Zach Silver's spin, but those rear tires having had at least 2 spins on them now, he must be struggling so much, especially in the braking zones, just trying not to lock the rear wheels up again.
That GT3 was so kind with their line. Dave Wood sails over the corkscrew, perhaps not wanting to put those rear wheels under any more strain. Probably at the limit of their braking, just kind of straight lines the corkscrew there. Yeah, like maybe he's heard us giving the credit to Zach or whoever it was. No, it was Jelinek who did the Bortoletto 360 spin. Maybe Dave Wood is like thinking, anything you can do, I can do better in a similarly liveried car.
Yeah, let us go back to the GT3 battle between Chris Downing and Ben Brown. As things have calmed down in the hypercar field just a little bit. A second gap has opened up between Ben Crick and Aaron Christiansen. Though how long that gap remains at a second, who knows? I'm sure GT3 traffic may play into that. They're about to come up on a couple of cars as they head through the final corner. You can see them on the track map, following Dov Myers, who has led this race from the start in the hypercar class, still leading the way and trying to pass a GT3 into T1, into the Andretti hairpin T2 as we follow this battle. Same can't be said for the GT3 class. Matt Townsend got pole position. He has the fastest lap of the race as Ben gets very close to Downing here for P3. But Christian Kiesig stole the lead off the start of this race and now holds a 2.5 second gap.
It's a nice position to be in these early to mid stages of this race. I'll say hello to Audio Architect in the Twitch chat, who said hello probably maybe 20 minutes ago, and the race has been so hectic. I've seen it pop up and then so much has happened in the meantime. Glad to have you along for the journey that we're currently on as the hypercars look their way. Oh, and that's Dave Wood off again in the same corner. That corner is proving to be very
contact!
Oh.
Chris Downing involved with an incident with Benji Beams. Spun round.
Oh.
That allows Ben Brown to take P3. Dusa Carpenter is now right behind these two. He has a little wide moment as hypercar traffic is on the scene here. We've got Tyler Hammer and Egner making their way, look at this, into the final corner, side by side.
Johnny Ashley doing very well for himself, up into P5. Himself and Jeff Close were in 6th and 7th there, both kind of making up a few positions, I suppose, from off the back of a few of the other incidents in GT3, but those are a few positions gained for them in this stage of the race as well. We had this traffic. We knew it was going to be an issue. Silverstone, big, lovely, wide track. As we saw, perhaps a very hopeful dive there. Beams. Oh, losing control of the car.
Yeah, got onto the gravel. Go replay this, see if we can get a better camera angle. So this heli cam, Chris Downing kind of moved over to left and squeezed Benji onto the curb. And then Benji was just on this very awkward line approaching the corkscrew with the gravel and the crest. And yeah, just a very awkward situation, sort of initiated by both drivers. as they came up to the corkscrew, and shows you just how awkward Multiclass is around here at Laguna. How little space there is. That's very much a moment where Benji kind of made it clear that they wanted to make a move on the left-hand side, but Chris Downing leaving by as little space as they could effectively, where a little bit more cooperation, a little bit more space from Chris Downing, and maybe we wouldn't have seen that incident.
Yeah, and I think the corkscrew is, there's plenty of corners which you could say there's like, a single line through. I feel like the corkscrew is fairly high up on that list, where it's like you just have to form an orderly queue, take your ticket, wait for your number to be called, and then proceed down the hill. I don't think there's a whole lot of benefits to be gained by trying to force the issue, especially when you're coming into battles with other leaders, and my heart always just leaps into my mouth when I see those gaps really close down. As Egner gets really close to the back of Tyler Hammer now, that battle, which had kind of, speaking of moves on GT3s, and he's suffered, he's went over the anti-cut curb, and that's really unsettled the car, and he's had a spin facing the wrong way. Does get it pointed back in the right direction, but that gap is just really extended. And I believe that is Beams there, just not racing for position in that moment, but that curb really just knocked Tyler Hammer off balance.
Yeah, it was.
But that's always the thing. Then is because once you find yourself on a different line than you're expecting to take going into a corner, there's so many factors that you have to account for with that new line you've decided to take, and curb placement just catching them out.
Yeah, it's such a late move to the right hand side from Tyler, and so aggressive in the movement, not necessarily the move itself. It seemed like a viable move, but to make it so late, it was such a direct steering input, and he ended up entering the corner about as tight as you can, right on the inside white line, and then getting on that anti-cut. Not a great move from Tyler Hammer, and certainly has paid the consequence of that while trying to pass the class leader, no less. That has had a little bit of a knock-on effect to the GT3 field, as Christian Kiesig, who Tyler was trying to pass last lap round, the gap we mentioned is about 2.5 seconds. The lead gap in GT3 a little earlier, it's come down to 1.2 seconds, though Kasich trying to correct that 0.3 or 2.5 tenths quicker than Townsend last lap around. But yeah, looking up and down the timing screen, the gaps have just opened up a little bit. You can see those last laps on your screen for yourself. See how the gaps are maybe being influenced, whether they're closing or opening. But of course, with Laguna, with the traffic especially, one lap you can gain a lot of time on a competitor, the next you can lose a lot of time, just depending on whether the traffic is giving to you that lap or is taking away from you.
Yeah, I think that's something to be said about, especially the nature of multi-class racing. You just have to get into the mindset that traffic is going to happen to you whether you like it or not, and it's up to you how you kind of manage how you react to that traffic. Sometimes people can feel like, I've lost so much time, traffic is really screwing me over, and then they try to make up for that loss almost, and end up forcing silly mistakes and things like that. Whereas if you realize, if you come to the realization that even the cars ahead of you, behind you, everywhere, they're going to be impacted by traffic at some stage. It's a 75-minute race. Traffic comes for us all.
Yeah, we had 28 drivers start this race, 13 hypercars, 15 GT3s. We still have all of our GT3s in the field, including Frank Vivek, who's currently on a 3-minute pit stop, worryingly. But our hypercars, we are missing to Peter Yelnik and Zach Silver. An instant turn for Zach Silver, trying to pass a couple of GT3s. It was awkward timing, just tapped the back of Chris Downing, who got away with contact. It didn't hurt him, but did spin Zach Silver. Peter Yelnick too close behind to avoid a big incident. And Alfie Bevan also getting caught up in it as well. But able to continue, but is now 2 laps off the lead in GT3. It's not the only one that is 2 laps off the lead. Rob Appleton, Christian Schlink, Hovsep Nazarian also 2 laps off the lead as well. There sort of seems to be a bit of a battle for P11 there. It's not that close, but if any of them have more issues, or depending on how much virtual energy they'll need to put in at a second pit stop to make it to the end of the race, still potential, maybe grab a point should someone further up the field in the top 10 currently have any issues. And as we've seen, it is not impossible.
Yeah, I feel like that's been our almost lesson learned over the last 2 rounds of this series as well. As Dave Wood goes for another excursion off the track. Igner then still ahead. Let's go for a replay here to see what happened. Igner going into the corkscrew, goes a bit deep, goes off track. Incident? Is there a bit of contact?
It's a bit awkward with the Mercedes there, as Igner was rejoining, but they kept it clean. It was just a little inconvenience. As we'll go back to this battle here then between Close and Fuskin. Bell over P7. Hang on a second. Charlie Morgan has had a moment at the corkscrew. We also seen a moment for Dave Wade at his usual turn 4 spot, again struggling with those rear tires. Barry, again, this feels like a replay of not a recent incident on lap 25, but of one much earlier in the race, when Charlie Morgan was in a battle. Egner, I think, is once again just cut the chicane. Got a couple of replays. Something apparently has happened here to Aaron. Looking to the inside of a GT3. I believe that's Dusa Carpenter. Just misjudging the grip, getting wide onto the gravel. Goes for a spin. And luckily keeps it off the track. I was a bit worried there, but fair play. And we'll come to Egner now, coming up to the bus stop. Not the bus stop, the corkscrew, sorry. A big snap there under braking, just about avoids the tyre. No GT3 trying to pass him while he rejoins this time. But yeah, Egner really struggling with the corkscrew. It is a really difficult braking zone. You have that crest. The track isn't quite straight. So you are slightly unloading a couple of tyres one side of the car more than another. But yeah, they're going to say not just difficult in multi-class, but also difficult just to lap by yourself for these hypercar drivers at least.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing as well. Like we've seen over the last 2 rounds that, like, even for instance in this position where Chris Downing is now trying to regain some lost time, has Johnny Ashley up ahead, and like positions, like even if for instance the leader is 3-4 seconds in the lead, there's how they deal with traffic and how traffic deals with them can have that impact, and those gaps can like whittle away and become nothing. So yeah, these cars that are still in it, which is, like you said, all of the GT3 field and most of the hypercars, it's very much a case of if you're still in this race in another 40 minutes, because goodness knows a lot's going to happen in that time, then you don't know where exactly you're going to finish up. And every position, there's points on offer for plenty of these drivers this evening.
Come on board to Chris Downing, who's trying to chase down Johnny Ashley. 1.4 seconds is the gap currently. Johnny was a tenth quicker than Chris Downing last lap. But of course, we've seen Chris Downing had the spin with Benji Beams a little while ago and is trying to recover from that. Johnny Ashley heavily compromised by the hypercar that has just gone through. Well, judging by the name that just came up as a yellow flag, I'm can tell you that was Egner once again having trouble at the corkscrew. That really compromised Johnny there. We'll see what the time difference is for this lap when they cross the line in a moment. But yeah, Chris Downing trying to gain back the positions lost. As past the line there, and yeah, that moment through turn 6 onto Ray House Straight between Egner and Johnny, clean, nothing wrong from what I seen, but did cost Johnny 0.6 of a second. That's just unfortunate how Multiclass goes. But yeah, Chris Downing on the hunt to get back into the top 5 here.
Alfie Bevan has just gone into the pits, and so I put my question to you, Scotty. When do we think is the cutoff time for when you can make a scheduled stop and then have enough to only make one stop in this race? We're kind of at that point now, do we think?
Oh, we're definitely past that part now, as we're coming up to halfway. A very tight moment here between, I believe this is Tyler Hammer and Johnny Ashley. They just about get through, but shows you how tricky it is. Let's have a yellow flag coming up this time. Charlie Morgan find themselves in the wall between turns 3 and 4. This on the inside of the 2 corners. Trying to find a bit of space, but as you can kind of see on the track map, is just car after car after car. One more GT3. Now there's a little bit of a gap for Charlie to get going. Falls down to P10 behind Benji Beams. But yeah, and now Ben Brown, first of the front runners in either class really, to make a pit stop.
The angle at which his car was at as we rejoined made me think that maybe he had a spin in the pit lane, but thankfully that was just the pit crew readying the car to get back and go racing, as he takes that oddly tricky pit exit, just taking the inside of the Andretti hairpin, and back out they go for their out lap. Battle here for the Porsches in P6 as well continues to heat up as well.
It's a very rough estimate. These cars can go about 45 laps on a tank of VE. Very technical track. Technical track, of course, means less full throttle usage. Less throttle usage, the less fuel / energy consumption there is, the longer you can go in a stint, both lap-wise and time-wise. So yeah, this track will be one of the easier ones with the so for the hypercars, that would mean they can roughly go about 56 minutes, it seems like. For the GT3s, they can go just over 1 hour. But got a yellow flag out for Johnny Ashley. He's had a spin at turn 3. Let's see what's happened here then. So hypercar down the inside, and the two come together on the apex. Not sure what hypercar that was exactly. Charlie Morgan's picked up a stop-go penalty. I would assume that's for speeding in the pit lane. So it's speeding into the Laguna Seca pit lane. If you know it, it's very tight on the inside of the already tight final corner. Would be a bit of a difficult one to squeeze into.
Hold on, what's happened to leaders in GT3? Townsend was ahead, but now Christian Kiesig. Or wait, no, or was it Christian Kiesig always in the lead? And
Kiesig's always been in the lead. He's extended. Ooh, fuse gate.
Oh, that's doing a what I would call a Porsche maneuver. Just applies the throttle too early and perhaps I don't know if they had gotten in contact with the curbs there, but better hammer than approaching some traffic. Ooh.
Yeah, just not quite pulling that move on off. Got to the apex, but wasn't turning in. Alfie was going to leave room, but Tyler not turning in, not making the apex, causing that contact spin then for Tyler, and quite a bit of time loss. I will come back to this one. Let's go on board with Tarasenko, who's on the inside here. Was sort of committing to the move and not a lot of space left there by Johnny Ashley. You could see Johnny sort of turning towards the apex. So a bit of a clumsy move, instant between those two. But yeah, not ideal. Just come back to live images. We find Ben Bryan and Dusa Compter, two drivers that have made their pit stops. Their time in pit lane identical, pretty much. There's a few tenths in it, but yeah, it's very little in it. They have Matthias Fuskin, of course, who we've seen have that spin at the final corner not too long ago. Fuskin still yet to pit. But yeah, very interesting at the moment as we are about 42 minutes into the race. It's going to be interesting to see which drivers. We've already seen a couple of drivers, the two that we're watching now currently, have pitted early. Will anyone else join them in pitting early, or have these drivers maybe taken a couple of new tyres? Maybe that's why we've seen them into the pits so early on. Question is, now that they've maybe got some new tyres, if they do, can they utilise these new tyres if they're maybe going to get stuck behind Fuskin or end up fighting each other?
Very tantalising prospect for us viewers who get to watch this over the next half an hour as it plays out before our very eyes. Yeah, I think just to touch back on like what we've seen in terms of incidents, I feel like up and down the field between hypercars and GT3s, as Johnny, or that's Ben, sorry, goes very much into the into the hairpin with a lot of gusto, making some contact, drops the position for the hypercar traffic. That was very feisty as they went in. Theodusa on the inside.
Ooh, very late on the brakes. Adusa was going for a move on Fuskin. Ben maybe not anticipating so much of a concertina from them making that move. Gets into the back of Adusa. Oh dear.
Oh no.
Hang on. Let's go back to this replay. And oh, passenger. I don't know what's.
Fuel?
He's already pitted.
Did he take fuel? I wonder. Oh no, he's.
I wonder if he's had a technical issue of some sorts. But yeah, Ben Bryan coming to a stop. We think for a technical issue. He's not done himself any favours. You've seen him cutting the pit entry there to get back onto the track. He's picked up a drive-through penalty for that. So from bad to worse, Ben Bryan.
Oof.
Tough one for him.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And if I may, just to go back to the point I was going to make, was that with the incidents, particularly with the lap traffic and stuff like that, so a lot of the incidents just seem very needless. Like, sure, the moves could be made for particular, or like, you know, from the quicker classes, we'll say, but the question I would pose is, does the move have to be made at that particular moment in time? Maybe it's just the drive that folks get when they're in the middle of racing. They don't perhaps consider that perhaps if I wait a corner, it'll be easier to pass these slower cars. But yeah, those would be all scrutinized and reviewed by the stewards, I suppose, if those incidents get reported.
It's a hard one to call from here in the commentary booth because the adrenaline you have when you're racing, the focus, the concentration that you have, you know, you're making these, and the situation that you're coming up to, it's not something like, yeah, you can build experience and have more and more experience to know, oh, what sort of moves are going to work. This move, for example, that move was kind of on, but Egner there putting a couple of wheels onto the curb just before turning in, that's absolutely what's ruined him. Oh dear, we've had a massive incident here. This is Ben Brown missing a
no,
rear
that's
wing, missing a rear tire. That is him out of this race. I can tell you that for a fact now. And Benji Beams missing a front left tire. They're at pit entry. He might get that back in. I don't think Ben Brown is going to get that in. Let me try and see what has happened here. Come to this replay. This is Ben. Okay, so this is the actual initial one. Let me come back to this one. Ben Brown through here and just eases off. And you can see they're sort of coming to sort of letting people through. So not sure what's happened there. Let's go to this moment here through the penultimate corner for Benji. Beams gets a little bit wide and oh, Ben.
oh no.
Ben sat stationary here just on the exit. Benji Beams comes through just a little bit wide. That's not a great place to be parked, but there'd also be yellow flags out. So drivers should be taking a bit easy, should be running wide to hit a car stationary there. I think that's a bit of amateur hour on both ends, potentially. So we'll come back to this battle and move on from that. A bit of a mess, let's just say, at penultimate corner. The fight for the lead has also closed up, by the way. Ben Crick 7/10ths back from Dov Myers, was 8/10ths quicker last lap. So Ben Crick starting to put the pressure on for the lead, as we also have Dave Wood putting pressure on Tyler Hammer to try and regain another position. But just to finish the point off about traffic, should you go for the overtake? As I was saying, it's something very hard from the commentary box when you're not in the car, sort of in the rhythm that these drivers are. It's really hard to say if when a move is on exactly or not, because it's split-second decisions. You know, if someone is half a second a lap slower than another driver, that's the difference between you deciding being better to wait a corner and better to actually just make the move now rather than waiting. But you're also putting a lot of trust in the competitor that you're going to make the pass on, that yeah, they're going to see the move that you're making and leave you maybe a little bit of space to make that move. They're not just going to turn in on you if you're on their inside. They're going to give you the space on the outside of a corner if you're trying to go the long way round, as Dave Wood sends it down the inside of Tyler Hammer, who sees it at the last second. Turns out, great awareness there from Tyler. Always love to see drivers when they're just that heads up. The car's made the committed move on the inside, has got far enough alongside to be warranted room. Driver on the inside's like, right, I've just got to give you the space, fair play, and avoid making unnecessary contact. Good. Very ambitious but clean move there from Dave Wood. Surprised he made it with how much he's been struggling with those rear tires. We've been a bit worried of him making a similar mistake as to what he's done before this race already. But he made it through cleanly. Good awareness from Tyler once again. And yeah, that's the sort of awareness there from Tyler that you hope the GT3s have. You get yourself alongside, you're making a clean move. You just hope, right, they see the move you've made and they give you the space. It's sometimes GT3 drivers will try and say, it's all on the hypercar to make a clean move, but GT3 driver can still very much be at fault for causing a multi-class incident if they're just not quite being aware of what the hypercars are doing around them, and of all the cars in general around them. As Charlie Morgan has gone for a quick spin here. It's got going just before a little train of GT3s comes up to pass. But yeah, I imagine this was just getting on the throttle a little bit too early through the tight final corner.
Oof. Does well not to hit the pit wall there. Yeah, it's funny. It's like the nature of multiclass is kind of like a dance that the hypercars and the GT3 drivers do, and you know, I suppose per the rule book, perhaps the hypercar is the one leading the dance in the sense that they have the responsibility to pass safely. But I suppose in the similar way, it's like, you know, someone can step on your shoes while you're dancing, and like I feel like perhaps with the GT3s, it's like if they see the hypercar behind them, they can take some steps to, as we see Charlie Morgan dancing in a different way, finds the barrier, does have the rear wing still. And Crook past, or no, getting ahead of Don Myers.
No,
oh no, sorry, now
he got very close. The timing screen got confused for a moment. Give him the lead for a moment. Hang on, he's not quite got it yet. But he has been chasing down. I think they just had a little bit of an awkward moment with some GT3 traffic, as you can see, passing to the inside of Alfie Bevan. Now Chris Downing in the Ferrari between turns 3 and 4. There's also this fight in the GT3 field. By the way, Charlie Morgan's off, as you can see by the yellow highlight in the timing tower. Off again. We will save him the embarrassment this time. I think he's got some major damage at this point and is just struggling to bring the car back, and will not be bringing the car back any further, deeming it undrivable. Maybe for the best at this rig, considering I think he'd gone off at every single corner on this lap so far, except turn 1. But turn 1's a pretty easy corner here at Laguna. Before you get to the Andretti hairpin of turn 2. So we'll watch this battle. P5 this is for in the GT3 field, but it's not really a fight for a net position. Adusa, of course, has made their pit stop already. Jeff is still yet to make theirs. So this has been a bit costly for Adusa, sort of on the, let's say, alternative strategy of pitting early, getting the pit stop out of the way, maybe taking a couple of tyres in traffic, losing time from their potential pace. The difference between these drivers' fastest laps, as you can see on the battle box bottom of your screen, just over 7/10 of a second. Adusa has the potential to be going much quicker here, but with that Porsche just in front of them, is instead trying to line up a clean move.
That's that Rob Appleton in the Lexus, in the yellow Lexus that's behind, but that's in P10, so that's perhaps a lap back after the pit stop.
It is indeed. I think he's more than a couple of laps back. No, he's just 1 lap down on this battle. In fact, the timing screen is showing me as having everyone bar the top 2 being a lap down on the leader. So Adusa Carpenter to the inside of the corkscrew, trying to make the move. Gets it stopped on the apex, but close, holds it around the outside, holds on to the position. Well defended there. Good respectful racing from the two of them so far.
Yeah, and you'd almost say this is a race for position, but not with Carpenter and Close, but rather Carpenter and Appleton behind, because obviously if Carpenter, if Close will need to be the one battling with Appleton if Close needs to pit, as we have the cars almost going 4 wide, 3 wide as they crest over the hill. So it's some strategy still to play. There's 20 minutes left in this race, so the last those pit stops. Although, what am I saying? If Close is already pitted,
I just want to say, this battle has been so good so far. Good, respectful racing, both leaving each other room, going for moves, but being very fair against them. Close dips a couple of wheels into the gravels are coming across a slow-moving Lamborghini of Benji Beams. And making a move on said hypercar, but Deuce Carpenter finally getting the move done and finally gets clean air. Not for long though, as finds a hypercar on their inside for turn 5. Will just slot in behind. And can now go chasing after Johnny Ashley, who's next up the road. Then Chris Downing in P3 is a little under 20 seconds up the road. So I think podium potential here for Deuce Carpenter. Just need to keep the pace going. I think, though, a top 2 finish is off the cards. 30 seconds, over 30 seconds between Townsend and Chris Downing, second and third. Benji Beams. Yeah, we caught that one.
Oh, tough stuff.
Let's actually go to the in-cockpit cam. Look, the rear brakes on going into the final corner. Luckily, the 2 GT3s managing to get through cleanly. As leader in the pits, Dov Myers in the Alpine from the lead of the hypercar field is into the pits now. Let's just bring up those virtual energies. Ooh, look at that. Some people have 7%, go a few more laps. So that's how things are at the moment. Let's also bring up the last pit time so you can see just how long everyone has spent in the pits. It is a short pit stop here, 13.9 seconds in the pit box for Dov Myers, and that's 37.7 seconds in pit lane total. So it's fairly short pits. Of course, then you have to navigate this very tight pit exit, as you alluded to earlier, Paul. So tight, you're basically on full lock. Thankfully for these drivers, they do have tyre warmers, which helps them get a round. But yeah, it is a nightmare on cold tyres, especially. The question is, Ben Crook. He's in the lead for one lap. He's now into the pits. His pit stop should be a little bit shorter, but of course it all depends on how well they've got the fuel calculation done for the remainder of the race. 17.5 minutes to go as Crook comes into their pit stall. Has Dov Myers got their calculations done that you don't want to be adding excess virtual energy, otherwise it just costs you time. I can tell you Ben Crook has only put in 30% of VE versus Dov Myers 32%. That one lap difference showing very clearly there. And that's gained him 0.7 of a second in the pit box. But actually the time spent in pit lane between the two drivers, identical to the 0.1 of a second. There's Dov Myers in the background coming into the Andretti hairpin. He'll have the long way round, but is able to carry more momentum. Ben Crook on the inside is out into the net lead. Ben Crook with pit strategy, running that one lap longer. Looks like they're on course to take victory here, taking away the win from Dov Myers, who took pole position from them.
Coming into the pit lane with 1% of VE remaining, I was I was really hoping, or, wishing that they had something left in their tank, but running it so fine, almost exceeding the VE usage, but able to get in regulation, out just ahead of Myers. Yeah, so fantastic effort from them to get out and to keep the lead. Of course, Chris Jensen is in the lead as it stands, but they have 3% left, so they will be pitting within the next lap. Hope.
You may notice here, Matt Townsend has lost a lot of time as he comes across the line. Maybe it was on a prior lap, but the gap between Townsend and Christian Kiesig has opened up to 7-8 seconds now. Maybe that's been happening gradually and I just didn't quite notice. But Chris Downing has certainly closed up quite a bit, though the traffic actually. Sorry, Something is messing with the timing screen. The interval not showing correctly between our drivers in GT3. So we'll head back into this hypercar battle.
It's in fourth place, coming out of the pits.
Oh, GT3 at the wrong spot there for Ben Crook, and Dove Myers to the inside of the penultimate corner. Doesn't pull the move off. The opportunity showed itself. He had to go, but thankfully Ben Crook just able to get past the GT3 in time to hold on to the net lead. It does become the lead as into the pits for Aaron Christiansen now. We'll see how short their pit stop is. But Ben Crook with the strategy to take the lead of this race. Can Myers, with 14 minutes left in the race, find their way back to the lead on track? Will traffic benefit the 963 Spike liveried Porsche? Or will the Alpine be able to make something work around this tight technical track? Doesn't offer a lot of overtaking opportunities, and those that it does offer are not easy ones to pull off, especially in cars as quick as these hypercars.
The leader of one class waves by the leader of another class. Christian Kiesig in the background was the leader of the GT3 class. And yeah, it's like, Ben Crook is ahead on track, but it does mean that they are going to encounter traffic first, which might mean, they're able to navigate it as they choose, but it could also mean that they get stuck behind perhaps a slower car, and that gives the opening then to Dove Myers in P2 to capitalize, as we almost saw on the last lap. Yeah, 13 minutes left on the clock. We're on lap 50 out of a predicted 60 laps, so 10 laps remaining. Sounds about right, given the lap times of these drivers. So yeah, the fuse is burning quick on this race. Not long left. Plenty can happen. Will there be a change in these top two positions?
We go on board with them as they find a bit of clean air on the track. You can see the next two GT3 cars are in the corkscrew. I mean, they are fast approaching. Then they have about 6 GT3s in relative short proximity. There's 2, then there's a little bit of a gap, and then there's 4 next in front. One of them has just come into the pits, so that does make it a little bit easier, but things could kick off very shortly. Just before we get there, Captain Danger asking, what's the death/injury toll? I couldn't tell you the injury toll because many people have suffered, even if they've not necessarily taken car damage. They've had spins where they've damaged their tyres and have been suffering ever since with them. Looking at Dave Wood. Our death count, though, we have 3 in the hypercars. Peter Yelnik, Zach Silver, unfortunate coming together. Zach spinning, trying to overtake a couple of GT3s. Peter Yelnik having nowhere to go and avoid. Alfie Bevan got caught up in that. Is tipped into a spin. Goes Rob Appleton as Ben Crook was looking for a move on the inside of turn 3. That could be a post-race penalty that ultimately decides this race.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying about the dance. It's like the GT3s can signal their intent as well if they intend on taking the racing line, or if they, you might see some drivers like we see here going completely off the line as if to say, please walk on through. And then I suppose when you're leading the race in hypercars, those signals become somewhat muddied, and then suddenly it's like, oh, are they insisting that I go through, or are they saying no, I would like to hold on to this position, position on the track for a moment longer until a better opportunity presents itself? But yeah, that is
tagged round is Myers.
Oh no,
I believe that was Adusa Carpenter.
I believe it was indeed.
Get a replay from on board. Adusa's coming through. This angle shows us a little bit more. I think just pinched down at the apex from Dove Myers. Thought they were maybe clear of the Aston, maybe expecting the Aston to back out a little bit more. But drama for both of our leaders in hypercars. as they were passing GT3 traffic. Ben Crook tapping Rob Appleton in the Lexus around and potentially picking up a penalty. Dov Myers being tapped around by Adusa Carpenter through the final corner. And it all comes back to, this is, as you have put it so well this race, Paul, a dance between the two. There has to be give, there has to be take. Dov Myers just moving over to the right-hand side of the track as they pass Adusa for the second time, showing their displeasure at the incident that unfolded a little under a lap ago. The gap is 10 seconds. For those that know our stewarding procedure, the main penalty that you're likely to get in a moment like this is 10 seconds. So if Ben Crook does get reported and is deemed to be at fault for that incident for spinning Rob Appleton around, the likelihood would be a 10-second time penalty. That means this fight for the lead is still on, but instead of it being a battle for position on track, it's a battle to keep a gap either above 10 seconds if you're Ben Crook currently in front, or under 10 seconds if you're Dov Myers. It's maybe not quite the race we were expecting to end, but it is still going to be an exciting one.
Absolutely. And Christian Kiesig, we've almost missed it, goes into the pits with 1% remaining on their VE usage, is currently stopped and is getting a bunch of fuel. That was just ignorant letting through.
I think he has damage. A lot of sparking coming from the ground. I think he might have a punctured tire. Let me see, here's an earlier incident coming through turn 3. The right-hander gets round, loses rear end, slightly overcorrects into the left-hand side wall. Oh, front left tire taken off. That would explain the issues there.
Yeah. You can see which angles we've been getting prior to that. We were none the wiser, but yes, that would explain their inability to turn quite as much. Very unfortunate. Just having a look. It does look like Kiesig has come out about 7 seconds in the lead of the GT3 class. Drama up and down.
Oh, that's a little awkward moment there. You can see the Mercedes just didn't quite take the full racing line going to the outside of the corner. And Myers, who probably was expecting the Mercedes, there you're trying to carry speed through that corner. You naturally drift to the outside. Oh, as a hypercar, you cut back to the inside. But he just knows, hang on, that car has gone a bit tighter, and then opted to go to the outside of the corner. After all, it's easier to open up the steering wheel and go for a wider line than it is to try and turn the steering wheel more and bring the car to a tighter line, because you're then asking for more grip that you don't necessarily have. Just tricky moments like those when the GT3's just slightly unpredictable. That can change everything in a race like this, especially when Ben Crook and Dov Myers are on a hot lap time trial. Let's get that bell box back up so we can see the gap. It's down to 7 seconds. Let's get the last lap back up on our timing screen, and you can see Dov Myers 9/10 of a second quicker last lap around. He is not done with this race. He is putting in a charge. Though traffic, it gives, it also takes away. It seems like he's maybe got the better rub of the fortune last lap around. Will it continue to the end of this race? The track ever so short. We still have 14 GT3 cars circulating round on track. We're guaranteed for more multi-class action, if not action, within the same class. Dov Myers coming up to lap one of his fellow hypercar competitors, this being Tyler Hammer, who's running very well in the top 5, but shows you just how short this is. Tyler Hammer getting on the outside curb there, and as we've seen earlier from one of the hypercars trying to pass the GT3 around the outside there, does not end well. He's ended up off the track. And Dov Myers going for the cutback on Christian Kiesig, gets to the inside and will get the apex of the final corner this time, unlike what they did with Adusa Carpenter a little bit ago. So it is now run to the end of the race. Just under 5.5 minutes remain. The gaps across all of our cars have spread out, but of course with a potential penalty looming over Ben Crook for an instant with Rob Appleton through this corner, through turn 3 that we've just gone through now, means that Dove Myers is still in contention to win this race. The key gap is 10 seconds. If it's under 10 seconds and Ben Crook does get a penalty, Dove Myers will likely be the winner. If the gap is more than 10 seconds, Ben Crook will likely hold on to this race either way. This is a horrible place to catch a GT3. Myers being sensible, slowing down earlier to allow himself to pick up the throttle, carry more apex speed through the middle of turn 6, and then you carry that extra speed all the way up Rahal straight to the corkscrew. Whereas if you put yourself right under the rear wing of the car you're trying to pass, you have to slow down. You can only go as fast as they go through the corner, and then that loses you time all the way to the next corner. So Dove Myers showing a good bit of multi-class experience there in front of him. Let's go to Ben Crook, who has a couple of GT3 cars in front of him. Starting with a Porsche. This is the Porsche of Johnny Ashley. Will thankfully get the acceleration to get the move done before turn 4. Johnny Ashley, notoriously difficult car to overtake in as the faster class. Let's go back to Dove Myers, who's also finding a bit of traffic. Oh, catches right to the back of this is Jeff Close into turn 5. That was definitely a bit of time lost. And look at this, gap up to nearly 10 seconds once again. As I say, traffic gives it, but also takes away. Let's go back to Ben Crook. He's going to find a GT3 here, and this especially awkward point between turns 9 and 10. The drivers come from the right-hand side of the track, the outside of turn 9, and then they want to swap back to the left-hand side, and you just have to try and perfectly time. Where are they going to be in that transition from one side of the track to another when you want to pass them? And so what way should you go? It is such a difficult decision. It is not easy indeed. But yeah, these drivers having to make difficult decisions. We'll go back to Dove Myers as he's got a couple of GT3 cars not too far in front of him. The gap currently hovering around 9.5 seconds. It's slightly in his favour, but will it remain that way? BMW, as he comes to turn 4, awfully timed, and that was even worse there. Frank Vevick slowing down on the run to the apex, and Dove Myers, you can't predict that. You can't just say, oh, they're going to slow down, so I'll absolutely send it. That's how you end up with a crash, running into their door. And same again, Alfie Bevan catching him at a worst time. A little bit of a slide there for Alfie. It's been a couple of bad, unlucky moments for Ben Crook, but for Dove Myers, sorry. But he has clean air now, unfortunately. Also looks like it's clean air for Ben Crook. The gap is 10.2. This is now a bit of a time trial race. It will be 2 laps to go as they cross the line. They will catch a couple more GT3 cars before the end of the race. They could be the deciding factor in this race. Oh boy, this is going to go right down to the final corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to make the point that we're also at the end of a 75-minute race where it's maybe some drivers, they just want to get the car home, take it easy and bring it in. On the other hand, we might have some drivers who are just, there might be Joe, it's like when you're driving home in your car, it's more often than not, it's in the last few 100 meters before you get to your house that you're more than likely to have an incident. So because you're switching off mentally. And I wonder if maybe some of that is going to influence some of the traffic or the incidents that we may see. Just wanted to touch on as well for P3 in the GT3. I do say,
yeah, it does look like my internet is playing up a little bit at the moment, which is not the time for it. So yeah, sorry if you both seen a little blip in the stream. Just having a couple of internet issues, but it seems hey.
down into the corkscrew for the last time.
Last lap around, Dove Myers was 0.6 of a second quicker than Ben Crook, and it looks like it might just be enough. If a penalty is given to Ben Crook, that he'll take the win. But for now, on track at least, it is Ben Crook in the Spike 963 Porsche hypercar that takes victory over Dove Myers, who will come through for second place. Adusa Cumder just passing there.
Arizona is never ending. But Laguna Seca is a close second. It was yeah, provisionally, I suppose we can throw that out there. Dove Myers in P2 with that gap being 7.5 seconds. Lewis in P6. Dave Wood, we had seen them drop all the way down to P12, finds themselves in P7. Perhaps testament to what happens when you stick around and continue racing despite multiple spins. Dominique
Christian Kiesig, dominant victory ahead of Matt Townsend. Adusa Cumder, potential penalty looming with Instant and Dove Myers at the final corner towards the end. But on track, it is a P3. Chris Downing, a little bit of an instant with Benji Beams. Brought them back. They'd recovered to P4. Had Johnny Ashley, who takes P5, a good race from them, which is good to see. He's had a tough season so far. Jeff Klaus takes P6 out of Matthias Fuskin in P7. They had a good race throughout that. They had a good battle throughout that race, I should say. Kurt Dickman takes P8, have Rob Appleton P9. Paul Kingsbury takes final points in P10. Hofset Nazarian just missing. I had Christian Schlink. Alfie Bevan caught wrong place, wrong time, unfortunately, get involved in that instant with Perry Alnick, Zach Silver. But did get to the end of the race, which is to be commended. Frank Vivek really struggling here at Laguna Seca. And Ben Brown with brake pedal issues being the cause for his retirement. Apparently he was swapping some parts in the pedals earlier today and he made a user error. So unfortunate for Ben Brown and those that got caught up in those moments. Wow, that was a race. I suppose we should see how that affects the standings. It is Christian Kiesig that leads the way now by 62 points ahead of Matt Townsend. 1 point separating the two, Matt Townsend to Chris Downing. Of course, provisional results. Deuce Carpenter saying P4 tied on points with Rob Appleton. Ben Brown dropping to P6 after that latest result. Athol Basker singing P7 had Jeff Klaus P8, Connor Dickman P9, and Johnny Ashley tied on points with Dickman, rounding out our top 10.
Yeah, and Hypercars, a similarly dominant lead out front. Ben Crook also 62 points ahead of Dave Wood, who is in P2 with 54 points. Although Dove Myers, I was looking at the screen as he pulled it up, and the mirroring which is happening between Hypercars and GT3s in this championship is pretty funny to watch. Very similar gaps from P1 down to P2 and 3. But this time, Dove Myers in P3, Max Tarasenko down with 38 points ahead of Daniel Johansson with 33. Elliot Lewis finds themselves with 30 points in P6. Nicholas Davis, who wasn't present today, remains in 27 points with Aaron Christiansen on 23, with Charlie Morgan on 20, and then Tyler Hammer on 18 points in 10th place. But yeah, a lot of gains to be made there from I suppose like even Dave Wood. Dave Wood is the one that strikes me as interesting, as they're in P2 in the championships, but like with results like this today, it's just a case of you have to stay consistent and P2, P4, and a P7. So obviously dropping the last round just now, but yeah, fascinating stuff to see how these battles are unfolding as we're still in the first half of the season. All could change in the remaining 5 rounds. Or wait, no, sorry, not 5 rounds, 4 rounds.
3 rounds.
3 rounds. Goodness me.
Of course, there is one drop round, as you allude to. That is not considered in the standings just yet, as you might notice on the SimGrid standings. A little difference. But yeah, later in the season, those worst results will be dropped. Those DNFs potentially that Dove Myers and Daniel Johansson have at the moment will be dropped. That P7 or P9 from Dave Wood and Max Tarasenko respectively will be dropped. But yeah, consistency seems to be a bit of a struggle in Hypercar field, which maybe isn't too much of a surprise. The car's lacking in ABS, well, and the tricky tracks that we've had to start the season maybe does help lead into that in a
Mhm.
manner. But that is, Paul said, that is the first half of our season done. Next week, we head back over to Europe, this time at the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari, much better known as Imola, as we look to start the second half of the season. A much smoother, a much easier track in that regard, but still a pretty tight track. Multiclass action still quite difficult, can still get very chaotic. It doesn't get much easier at Sebring. It maybe has a little bit more space, but the bumps, oh, they sure do like to take victims. A track that quite a few people struggle with consistency on. Well, we'll see how that fares in the penultimate round. And thankfully for our drivers, things smoothen out again for the final round. But still, another very technical track. Portimao. Think of how many drivers struggled with the braking zone for the corkscrew. Key factor of that? Well, there's a crest in that braking zone. Portimao has a few of them too, as well. So this driver's struggles from tonight may re-emerge when we head to Portimao as well. It also has some of those similar anti-cut carbs. So yeah, this could be an interesting one. However, that is going to be it from me and Paul tonight. Any final words on that chaotic race to finish?
Oh goodness. Yeah, I not necessarily on the race, but more on the season as a whole. I don't know if the first half is going to be a sign of things to come, or if we're going to see a change in, I suppose, attitudes and performances coming into the last three races. Looking forward to finding that out along with you all.
Yep, indeed. Of course, don't forget we do have some more racing this week. Tomorrow we have our Racing Stronger Formula Club series on South Corsa. We're heading to Okayama for three 20-minute sprint races, the final of which is going to be a full reverse grid. So make sure to join Ben and Jared for that tomorrow. On Wednesday, we have our ELMS GT3 Cup 1 hour of racing with mandatory pit stop. That will have Sam and Tom on the commentary booth for that, for what has been a good season so far. Of course, we have our other championships Thursday on South Corsa Evo with Mazda MX-5s, and on Sunday, our Sprint LMP3 Championship with two 30-minute races, including a pseudo reverse grid for the second one, the top 10 not qualifying, and thus starting from the back of the second race. So some great racing, some great streams over the next couple of days. But obviously, me and Paul will be returning next week as we get into the second half of season 5 of 2026 here at oNiD. Thank you very much for your company in the meantime this evening. We hope you enjoyed the carnage that was Laguna Seca. But until next time, take care, have a good rest of your week. We'll see you next time. Good night.